Even though it's hard to tell from this angle, things are looking a little bit different in my home studio. And the last time I did a studio update video was actually over 2 years ago. So, given the changes I've made over the past 5 or so months, I thought I would take you behind the scenes and just show you what changes I've made, but also why I made those changes. Because if I'm being honest, ever since I shared my video about avoiding gear acquisition syndrome, I've opened myself up to more and more scrutiny on, well, any purchase I make. Now, as a refresher about that video, before buying anything, I try to answer the question, what problem does it solve? By buying this, what problem am I actually solving? And the two factors that I consider the most are quality and friction. When it comes to quality, I want to say, do I need higher quality? And when I ask about friction, I'm saying, can I reduce the friction that I am currently experiencing? So I'm going to share how these factors have played into my decisions and sort of what spurred them. Let's start with the biggest change, and I literally mean it's a big change because I changed my desk. And you see, for the longest time, I was using a fixed height standing desk, meaning I could either stand, or if I wanted to sit, I could just sit in a drafting chair, so just higher up. But either way, the desk was always in the same place. It never raised or lowered. It was just always at standing height. Now, I thought this was the best of both worlds. I didn't have to worry about getting a sit stand desk. And it was only recently this summer when I went to a co working space. When I sat down at the regular height seated desk, I realized that not only was I feeling more focused, but I actually really liked having my feet on the ground. And that made a big difference for how I felt about the work. I literally felt more grounded. And that got me thinking maybe I can actually switch to a sit stand desk. And the only change I needed to make to my studio was to move my camera. So I had been using a tripod to hold up my camera and teleprompter. And that's how I've been doing it for so long that I just kind of thought, well, the camera is at standing height, so I'll be at standing height or I'll sit at a tall chair. So once I decided that I was going to mount the camera to the desk and everything else was already mounted to the desk, it actually was not a really big change. So I ended up going with a company called Desky. They are based out of Canada, and I got the dual sit stand desk, meaning both legs are powered. It's so sturdy. And I actually really love it. I really wish I had done this sooner. The other thing is that the desk itself is actually bigger. So it's a bit wider and it's a bit deeper, which actually works out well for just me feeling like I do have space, just kind of space to spread out, put things down, do demonstrations. But the other thing that's amazing is I decided to add on the cable management. So I got the little sort of tray for having all of the cables, but I also got a couple of power bars that are built in. So I can plug in both regular plugs and USB plugs into this track, and it keeps everything so clean. I mean, one of the things that I used to actually do and really didn't like that I did it is because my feet weren't on the ground, sometimes I would kick my feet forward and I would either hit the tripod or my leg would actually hit a cable and yank on a cable. And that was really dangerous. And sometimes it was not something I was thinking about and it would just happen. The other thing I really like with the sit stand desk is not just how smooth it is and how easy it is to adjust the height, but there's also a cable at the front. So it's a USB-C charger. So if I have my phone, for example, right now, I actually have this live view of my desk as I record this. I've got this view going. And so my camera is really close to me and I can actually have it charged so that it is in that USB-C charger. This is also great for if I want to maybe charge my mouse or my keyboard or just anything that is close by. And that has been absolutely incredible. And I'm so happy with this desk. So that is the first thing that changed. Now, the second thing is that I did change how I mounted my camera. So I already mentioned that, but I wanted to specifically address that I didn't actually buy a mount. I already had a mount from Elgato that I used to put up one of my LED lights. Then when I switched out my lights a while back, they came with their own desk mounts. So, and then I had a freed up desk mount. And so that is what I've got my camera slash prompter on. But a difference that I made, which had to do with friction. So we talked about this idea of how can I reduce friction? You see, every time I would set up a scene in Ecamm or OBS or any kind of virtual camera software, I would usually zoom in, but then I would also adjust the picture. And so as I am making those adjustments, I ran the risk of every time I created a new scene, I would always duplicate my camera so that I wasn't moving around. What I did this time is I actually angled my camera specifically so I only have to zoom and I don't have to make any adjustments up or down. That has actually been a huge change as well that has just alleviated a headache that I had where now if I start any fresh scene, if I haven't duplicated it, I just say fresh scene and I just know how much I want to zoom and then it will always look the same because I never have to adjust the camera up or down. And that's been so good. Like, huge change. If you are someone who zooms, you're cropping in your camera and then you're actually adjusting up or down, highly recommend just changing the angle of your camera so you only have to zoom. The next thing that I did is related to the camera, and that is to actually swap out. So, not using the Sony ZV-1 anymore, but instead deciding to use the Sony ZV-E10. And that is because I did decide to get the lens. So, I got the 16 millimeter f1.4 Sigma lens for the Sony E mount, and I already had this Sony ZV-E10, so that was something already on my roster, which I kind of acknowledged maybe was a little bit premature when I first bought it. But I was able to change the lens. And so now I do have that lens. That the background does have a little bit more of that blur than I had with the Sony ZV-1. And what's nice is that because I changed the lens, it actually led to another change, which has also reduced friction. So the lens was about quality, but there was an added bonus about friction. You see, the next thing that I changed is I actually have the prompter on the camera lens. Before, I had my teleprompter was on the mount itself, and then I had my Sony ZV-1 on the ledge. And so the teleprompter was mounted. This time, the camera is mounted, and then the teleprompter, which one of the amazing things about the Elgato prompter is it's so lightweight, you can actually mount it on the end of your camera lens. I couldn't do this before with the Sony ZV-1 because it had a retractable camera lens. It wasn't fixed. So this has actually been really nice. And this also means that I can see all the controls. So before, when I had to have my camera on the little ledge or shelf, it had to have that cover or that shroud. And so I couldn't actually see the on and off button or any of the controls unless I pulled back the shroud. But now I can see all of my camera controls and really easily access the camera. So that has also just removed a ton of friction, and that's a quality of life change that I'm just so happy with as well. So this is easier for me because I do have a deeper desk. If I had done this on my old desk, it probably would have pushed the prompter a little bit too close to me, honestly. So I still probably would have found a way to mount the prompter instead of the camera, just for the mere fact of how do I push that back a little bit. But I still want it to be attached to the desk so I can do the sit stand. Now, the next one is that I also have a webcam that I added on in the spring. And I talked about this a little bit in my recent video around webcam versus camera. I bought it for travel, but also to be able to do some desk shots and have as a backup. And let's just go through these. So for travel, first of all, I like the idea of having a dedicated camera. I know quite a few people when I released that video said, oh, I really like to use my phone. The phone is a great option to use as a webcam, connecting it to your computer. However, for me, the slight pain is that then my phone is no longer accessible. So when I'm using the camera, I cannot access my phone for whatever reason, which doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes it does. And then the other issue is you always have to kind of set it up and not. Now, if you're traveling, it's fine, it's temporary. But using the phone when you are when you're doing your home setup, I think having a dedicated camera is the way to go. But anyway, the reason I bring it up is that I bought it mostly for travel, but also knowing that sometimes I like to do an overhead shot. And so if I'm running a demonstration like with the Stream Deck and I want to show a live camera view of the Stream Deck, that is something that I can do with that. And the other thing, as when I say backup, is that on occasion, it actually does not happen very often. So my camera can overheat if I'm just using it way too long. So if I have too many meetings in a day or I'm doing too many recordings, that even though I've got the settings turned on and I can get through a long calls and workshops, eventually there is a point where it will stop. So it's not going to go indefinitely. So it's nice to have a backup camera. So all of this desk view has been made possible by my solid arm mount. And so this mounts to my right LED light in the corner. And what's really great about it is the flexible option to just be able to swing the arm. So I can either have it in front of me or I can swing it and have a desk shot. And it's so easy to do. I can change it in under a minute just by moving it to the side, just kind of pivot it to the side and angle it down. It is really, really easy to do. And I haven't done a lot of recording with it yet in this position, but I'm actually really excited to do those types of shoots. Now, the next one is actually my mic position. So that's swapped. Yes, and I'm getting used to not hitting it with my left hand. So the mic position, it used to be on my right. And because I swapped my cabinet, so the cabinet used to be on the left, now my cabinet is on the right. And because of that, I couldn't have the desk mount bumping into the top of the cabinet when I lower the desk. And so in order to compensate for this, I moved my mic over to the left side. And in actual fact, I like it a little bit more because I'm right-handed. So I do tend to do more things with my right, although occasionally the left can get in the way and maybe bump into the microphone, which I try to keep to a minimum. So having this over here, it's still the low profile arm, that's the same arm. And so I can easily tuck this out of the way when I'm not using it. So that is great. I also did make a change to my microphone, but I'm actually going to do an entire separate video on that. So stay tuned for that. Now, on the desk, I think it's for a while now. I've had a lot of Stream Decks. That's not new, but there's another one on the desk. So yes, there is a second Stream Deck Plus on my desk. And why is that? Well, one, I bought the original Stream Deck Plus when it came out. That was one of the first things I purchased. And then there was an opportunity from Elgato to try out the Stream Deck Plus with one of the adapters. So they just this summer released two adapters. One is for an XLR adapter, and then the other is for a USB hub. Now, I actually bought the USB hub this summer, so I got to try the XLR one in advance and kind of test that out. And the hub itself I am using right now. This is much newer. So this was just released and shipped out a few weeks ago. So it is powered. You do have to have it plugged into power and then also connected to your computer, but then it offers 4 extra USB. So 2 USB-A and 2 USB-C. And I am actually trying to reduce some of the cables that go into my CalDigit by now using this. So I actually have my Stream Deck XL and my Stream Deck, the 15 key, are actually plugged into the Stream Deck Plus with the hub, and that frees up other things for my CalDigit. So I have more space now on my CalDigit dock than I did before. I also have my webcam plugged into the Stream Deck Plus with the USB hub. So that is another change that I've made, and just really trying to manage the cables. If I'm being honest, I wish there was a way to just hide all cables, and maybe there's a way to tidy these up with some sort of cable grabber or something. So because to me, looking down at that, I don't know if that's friction. I think that's quality. It's a quality issue. But I am using I actually love the dials and having more than one dial, because the Stream Deck Plus has the 8 keys plus the dials. So the idea of being able to do more things on the right and left, well, I mean, I'm not sad about it. The other thing is that it's not on the desk, but I do have it handy for filming this, is the Stream Deck Neo. And this is the newest, most affordable Stream Deck. And it is plugged in right now just for the demonstration, but this is actually, I use this for travel. So I have multiple days where I have to be off site, and I just pack this up. So I just collapse it, and this just throws in my backpack. So I always have a Stream Deck on the go. It's adorable. I kind of love it. The white is great. And maybe I'll talk a little bit more about it in a separate video, because I don't want to go on and on and on. So that's technically not in my studio, but it is a new purchase, and it travels with me. So I always have a Stream Deck by my side. All right, the next thing you might be curious about, or maybe not, but it is part of my studio change, is the old desk. So the old desk, I actually put it up for sale for around 8 hours on Facebook Marketplace. That's not for me. Just I didn't enjoy that. But just as I was starting to try and answer more questions that people were asking about the desk, it dawned on me that I've actually wanted a surface, a clear surface for multiple things, both personal, kind of in the household, but also sometimes, yes, sometimes I want to film sort of B-roll. Like when I was doing the teleprompter videos, I really wished I had more space to film footage of the prompter. And I know I have other videos that I want to be able to show things with a bit more space. So it actually is really easy to put away because the legs, there's just an IKEA desk. The legs come off in just under a minute. And so I can store it in the closet, but I can bring it out if I want to do any sort of B-roll shoots, or if for sometimes just at home, I wish I had a little extra tabletop. So now I actually do. And I also have an old softbox that I got a long time ago. One of the first iterations of my studio, I was using a softbox. First, it was pointing at me, but it was too close. Then I bounced it off of the ceiling. And then eventually I got my LED lights. Now, the final thing that I do need to change, and I haven't yet, is actually my chair. Right now, I'm actually using, I am seated right now, and I am using my drafting chair just at the lowest possible height that it will go. But it is not the ideal chair for this. It still has that bar around the bottom, and I would like a desk where I can a chair that goes better with this desk. And I want to do a little bit more research because when it comes to a chair, there are so many factors to go into it. So that's definitely something that's on my mind. And I'm open to chair advice. If you have chair advice, please let me know. And I am someone who likes to fold my legs. So sometimes at my seat, I will sit cross-legged. So if you send me advice about a chair, just please keep that in mind. And if you are someone who does like to cross your legs at your chair and kind of you're someone who fidgets a lot, definitely let me know if you found something that you really like. Now, if I'm also curious to hear if you have made changes to your home office, home studio that have made your life easier. I would really like to know about them because I love learning from other people what makes a difference because sometimes we're just not even thinking about it. So let me know in the comments what's working well and also why is it working well? What change did it make? Is it making your life better? Is it removing a pain point that you had? I really like to learn from others as I continue to make some adjustments and see what helps to make more professional, engaging, and seamless virtual presentations.